The guy who created it in the 60s did it because with a thought process that if all the newsletter writers are bullish, it's a great time to be buying. When the newsletter writers are bearish, it's a good time to be selling, almost like averaging out the smartest people. As it turns out, he quickly realized it was the exact opposite. When the newsletter writers were telling you to sell, like in the summer and fall of 22, was a great time to be buying. And when they're telling you to buy, like 3 months ago, it was a great time to be easing up.
Today's show is sponsored by Public.com. Public is an investing platform where members can build a portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, ETFs, crypto, and alternative assets, plus get an industry-leading 5.1% APY with a high-yield cash account. I have an account there, and so does my daughter Rachel. Public's high-yield cash account has one of the highest rates in the market. They have a higher interest rate than Robinhood, SoFi, Wealthfront, Betterment, Capital One, Marcus, Ally, Bank of America, Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, Discover, and American Express. There are no fees, no subscription required, no minimum balance requirements, no maximum balance limits, and unlimited transfers and withdrawals. You also will receive 20 times the standard FDIC coverage of up to $5 million. Public also has recently launched options trading, where you can earn up to an 18-cent rebate per contract traded. To get started and learn more about Public, go to public.com/trends with friends. This is a paid endorsement for Public investing. 5.1% APY as of March 26, 2024, and is subject to change. Full disclosures and terms and conditions can be found in the podcast description. U.S. members only. Gentlemen! What did we call Riley earlier, Phil?
Ignorant fuck.
Riley, you ignorant fuck. We're bringing back, I just watched, what was it, Jane, you ignorant slut? Man, could they say that today? Could they even say that today on Saturday Night
I don't think
Live?
they could say, I think they would get canceled for saying that today.
Speaking of canceled, welcome to Trends with Friends. I am Howard Linzone. According to JC, the Cuban Missile Crisis, wearing baby blue. He calls it gray. JC, we got a lot of LOLs about me commenting on your individually gelled follicles last week. They seem to be pointing east. Well, depending on what way you're facing. What way do you think you're facing today?
Just standing tall, baby. Right, Perlman? Standing tall.
Standing tall, brother. Yes.
Way to not... Boy, you're like Trump, not answering the question. And we've got Phil, who has not yet washed that sweatshirt, because otherwise it would be some new color, because he always mixes colors.
Dude, this is a new color. This is freshly washed. This is a pink sweatshirt.
Bring that back next week. There'll be streaks of blue and orange on that when you mix colors with your tie.
Is clean.
And then Riley, the ignorant fuck, joining us from Sedona.
Sunny Sedona.
All right, boys, we have a lot to discuss. So, Phil,
let's go.
Phil,
Okay.
Bring it.
So today we're talking about the quest for the most interesting charts in the world. We have a number of most interesting charts, and we're bringing back that. We had that segment. It was excellent. People loved it, and then we just dropped it like for no reason whatsoever. So we're just bringing it back. We're going to try to keep it and not just drop it accidentally. Send us your most interesting charts. We're going to get right into it we have a bunch of interesting charts today. We're going to start with China technology. And JC, we're going to go to you on that one because this has your fingerprints all over it. This was posted by Straza, but this is a JC All-Star Chart special. And so there's something really interesting happening in China tech, CQQ. What's going on there, Jason?
China's one of those situations that, back in the old days, we used to be able to group China as, kind of with the rest, and these, for a long time now, China's kind of been like, Notre Dame. It's kind of like in emerging markets, but it's kind of doing its own thing. When you look at all these countries around the world, emerging markets included, look at the Brazilian Bovespa, look at the, Nifty 50, Nifty 500. These indexes have been making new all-time highs, and China, Shanghai, all these things have been near lows. In fact, there have been more, we were talking about it today, there have been more inflows into Chinese ETFs than they have in total assets under management. So just in general, participants in those markets have been penalized for doing so for so long. So, we've talked about sentiment in China and near washout levels. We've seen quite the mean reversion. And I just want to reiterate, that's all that this is, or that's all that there's enough evidence to suggest that maybe it turns into more. But for now, all it's really been is a mean reversion since day one, and that's okay. I still think there are opportunities for, doubles in some of these things.
The reason I shared it, even though it's JC and Straza, is how many people have, the dip buyers have just been crushed because, like JC says, no evidence. You've got to wait for the smarter money. Like, everybody tries to be famous for making top and bottom calls. What the show is called is Trends with Friends. This trend has been down. It didn't have a lot of friends on the way down, right? Like, people were buying the dips. They weren't, and now you can see with the thrust, people have pretty much given up. And there is some evidence that you put this trade on earlier in the year, Phil, probably based on a few things that we had shared with Rom. But there is more evidence that people are on the wrong side of this now, possibly. So there's no rush. If China's going to truly care about its tech stocks, and they probably should, because X's been buying them from the sellers probably for the last 3 years, there would be a lot of room to run. And so keep an eye. I added a little bit finally to keep an eye.
What is a breakout thrust, bro? Like, this is the second best 2 weeks in history.
Yeah, it's just a measure of rate of change. It's really just a way to quantify all the things that we're talking about, that these things have been ripping off of major lows. Like we see it, we can cut, but this is just actually quantifying that and putting in perspective throughout history. And by the way, names like Carvana are absolutely ripping. All of these stocks with super high short interest. GM, GameStop was up a ridiculous amount, 30% or something like that the other day. So these things are ripping. It's more of a theme. It's more of like where people have little to no exposure or even very short, continuing to press against it, are getting penalized for doing so. You're getting those mean reversions in both directions. You notice how tech had a major mean reversion. A lot of like things that were leaders have struggled for many, for 3-4 months in some cases. A lot of the super laggards have been mean reverting to the upside, right? So it's kind of just a, changing of the guard. And then when you look at a lot of the major indexes, we have the small cap index here. Look at the S&P small cap SML, right? So this is the S&P 600 and the Russell 2000 small cap index. And when you look at them together, it's very representative of a lot of stocks. A lot of equally weighted indexes look like this. Software, a lot of just messy markets out there. So I think it's just more in messy markets, you get mean reversions in both directions from both extremes. That's like a normal characteristic it's part of what makes messy markets messy, isn't it?
Yeah. What was there other interesting charts that people shared?
We have a million. We have a million to get through today. I just want to take a quick victory lap myself. You were watching earlier in the year. I was talking about the Chinese New Year was going to be, could be a huge change in trend for China. And I freaking, how often do I post charts, Howie?
Yeah, but you like the sentiment, Roman.
I post them like every once in a while, but they're
my
value.
dad texted me.
First of all,
that's what you like
the four of us.
What's that?
My father texted me.
What's that,
remember?
JC?
That's what you got so excited about. The sentiment.
I love it. I just like the year of the dragon. Anyway, FXI, since the year of the dragon started, it's up like 20%. It's rocking. There's a chart right there. If you guys could throw that, Kiki, throw that up. There you go. Look at me taking I'm such a victory lap guy. But anyway, though, it's up, and I think it's going. There's your change of trend, by the way. I mean, look at that thing. It's beautiful. It's making higher highs.
Mean reversion city.
You think it's mean reversion? I think it continues all year long, all dragon year long. Okay.
It's
maybe. Okay. Beautiful.
Phil has great instincts, rarely puts on a trade. So I remember you thinking about it. You like the energy idea too. You're very selective, and this was a great trade. And by the way, you ignorant thrust based on your question.
Ignorant
Phil,
thrust.
you
Okay,
ignorant breath thrust.
Now let's move on to Argentina.
First of all, JC, that is your color. I mean, I said it earlier in the show.
Can we
I'm in love.
I just want to finish this one thing on the mean reversion, and you're saying that it can go to the end of the year. Here's the thing about mean reversions is that, to quote the great John Roque, this was George Soros' technician, we're not in a reversion to the mean business, but in a reversion beyond the mean business. So in a lot of cases, particularly from extremes, China being just a good example of that, we don't just get to the mean, we go further beyond it, right? I just wanted to throw that out there. It's a great concept.
Quick question, JC, is John Roque now handling all his far left donations?
He hasn't worked for Soros in a long time.
To somebody else. Okay. JC, do the kids look good in that color? Can I see a baby picture?
My kids look good in any color. Come on.
Ooh, look at that. All right. You know, my buddy Jim Payne.
Dude, you guys are an attractive couple.
Yeah,
you and your girl, and you have beautiful kids.
Unlike Sonny and Cher, though, we would like to have the babies appear on this show. I would think he should slut up those children and bring them on the show. JC, I was with my buddy last night, Jim Payne, who has identical boys. He says he can't fucking tell them apart. It's like 3 months in, he doesn't know which kid.
I was worried about that because when we took them home, like they don't tattoo them or something. Like there's no wristband. Like
I would have branded them. I mean, the trick is to brand them.
Mine looked completely different from the start, so it's easy.
I mean, they're not Jewish. Instead of the circumcision, a little wristband, little cattle thing. Okay, that's Howard's parenting quarter. Phil, take it on.
So next is this is Riley's line right here. I was talking to Riley this morning. So here's our second chart. Incredibly interesting chart. This is a Riley submission. Riley, why don't you tell us about it? It's 790 followers on StockTwits, and this thing is going crazy. It's the Argentina ETF ARGT.
Yeah, well, when the President Javier Milei, if I'm pronouncing his name right, got elected late last year, the Argentina ETF gapped up like crazy. And it just had been basing, and now it's trickling higher. And almost every single day, we're seeing names from Argentina.
Yeah, not trickling. That's a 50% move. Right.
Yeah.
Riley's been sharing a lot of energy names. You've been sharing a lot of energy names from Argentina on that list, right?
Not just energy. We have a bank name that pops up. It's GGAL. JC's probably going to hammer me on the pronunciation of it. Grupo Financiero Galicia.
We talked about it, yeah.
Financiero Galicia.
And then
Galicia.
Financiero Galicia. It sounds like gelato.
I can't roll my
It
R's.
was some gringo shit right there. Yeah.
I can't roll my
Three
R's.
amigos.
And then there's a natural gas transporter. But yeah, the energy space is hot. Overall, though.
Oh, that looks good.
And so these are all underfollowed. The Argentina ETF is underfollowed. It's less than 1,000. And then where's that photo of Musk meeting the crazy president? I think we had that. Yeah, there you go. That's hilarious.
I've been looking at him shilling cars. Like, you know, he's going to China and Argentina. God, you know what? He is CEO. That's his job. What a shit job. Some of those. You see CEOs, a little pity on these idiots for having to deal with these crazies. I think if you pulled up a chart of my 3Gs, Goldman, it's probably up 35-40% since Argentina guy got put in. Because guess who's going to win from selling shit to Argentina and buying shit back and doing all the energy deals and yada, yada, yada. Is all the Goldman people he's going to hire, which is, again, why Goldman's ripping, right? And they don't give a fuck about the U.S. right now. They're taking 3% rips off every time Elon or whatever cuts a deal. Where's stocks, 3 months? Probably the same percentage gains. So again, Elon's telling you to chase Argentina because he's shilling cars there after a 60% run. I think now you're in the show me phase in this move of Argentina. I think people have piled in. But anyways, it's not interesting to me anymore.
Hold on, two things there. Let's remember the Argentina ETF, the largest component is Mercado Libre, which is the sort of Amazon of Latin America. Can you throw up that chart? Because it's pushing up against new all-time highs. So let's understand that, great, it's an interesting story and this guy's crazy and all that stuff is fine. But let's remember what's driving these things and looking at the components. And Mercado Libre has been a huge outperformer. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's been a big winner for a long, long time. But look at that base. There's a lot of charts around the world that look exactly like this. So you're seeing that. And that's in terms of leadership. And then you bring Elon, look at that Tesla. You could put it in the same category pearl dog as China and some of these, GameStop and some of these extremely, marijuana stocks, some of these deeply sold stocks. Tesla's squeezing. You're seeing it.
Could squeeze, Apple squeeze, as we talked about.
Hey, Howie, is
Yes,
the
sir.
Argentina thing, is Elon going to Argentina just for the cars, or is there a political thing too? I mean, this guy is a righty, and the China, like the whole thing is like a political tour. It's an election year.
I think the play here is still space for him. He's taking all his, the play is space and that other his satellite company, right? They're going to dominate. What's his space company's 180 something billion. I was out with Brian Norgard, who's been buying stock in SpaceX since the seed round and not selling. People love the team. He's kicked the ass out of Viasat. If you want to talk to people that hate Elon Musk, let's bring on the Viasat family. There's always arch enemies. He's not my arch enemy. I mean, I'm not a Tesla. We get to vote with our wallets. So as a non-Elon fan, all I have to do is not buy his car. But when it comes down to space, he's going to make money off all of us. When it comes down to getting on an airplane one day and getting his Starlink, we're all going to fucking pay. When it comes to remote internet, which could be Phoenix at this point, how bad American internet is, Starlink's going to win. So that's the play. I mean, the guy's doing his thing. He's one of the richest men in the world. He's president. He's got more power than Argentina. So with power comes, a lot of shitty travel and meetings, and that's what he's doing. My friend Yoni took a picture with him. eToro was with him yesterday at the Elon was at the hell's the name? The financiers conference in LA. I was there yesterday too, the big LA conference. I'm having a senior moment. But Yoni took a picture with Elon, said he's a weird guy. Off the record, he said he's a weird guy. And I don't think we're telling anybody anything they don't know. So that's Argentina.
Do we know anyone? Do we know anyone in Buenos Aires?
I've been there. It's fabulous. Really cool Jewish neighborhoods. Here's the interesting about Argentina. It really, not quite like Cuba, as JC knows, but Argentina is like frozen in time in many ways, right? It's not from the Cuban cars and like that. But man, Argentina was like a force, before World War II. So when you go there, it's really quite beautiful. But the poverty is overwhelming as well. And, the fact that people hide, you can't show your wealth, right? So you don't know where you're going in a neighborhood if a house is rich or not, because it's all barricaded in many ways. No one shows off because of, decades of poverty and crime, et cetera, and bad government. And the inflation, you go to Argentina and you go, this is what inflation, bad inflation, high inflation does to a fucking place. And it's rather sad. All right, but enough about Argentina. Phil, next.
Okay, so let's move on. Hey, JC, just really quick though, do you like that ETF chart, that Argentina, and do you like the Melly chart?
Yeah, I mean, because you look at Argentina local markets, and obviously line go up because it's the denominator, right? That gets crushed because of the inflation that Howard's talking about. But when you look at the Argentina ETF price in US dollars, you're seeing it. But like I said, let's understand what's driving this. I don't know if it's necessarily the economy of Argentina or this guy, more so than the stocks themselves that are in the ETF and driving it. So, we pointed to Mercado Libre, right? You guys saw that chart. It's an absolute beast. In Latin America in general, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think people fail to realize that the United States was an underperformer last year. Latin America was the best performing region of 2023. So this is not a new theme. The relative strength has already been there. So keep that in mind too.
Beautiful. Okay, next candidate for the most interesting chart in the world is the recent sentiment shift that we're seeing in the market. I love this chart, by the way. I love the way you have the little triangle and the little diamond here. Sentiment range summary. So this is is this a composite that you got, JC? Is this a composite that you guys are developing or have developed?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just, I have the composite itself here. I'll drop it I'll drop it so you guys can see it. So it's right below there. So it here you can see the actual chart itself. So this includes what people are saying and what people are doing. So it includes the American Association of Individual Investors. It includes Investor Intelligence, which are the newsletter writers. It includes the active investment managers, which are active financial advisors for the most part. It's got the put call ratios, volatility. All of these are mean reverting in nature, particularly from extremes. And there's no perfect sentiment gauge. Analyzing sentiment is very difficult, right? A lot of people try to do that. I think we do it as best as we can, as anybody can do it, because what we do is we aggregate all of it and turn them into composites and look at them at sentiment holistically and putting more weight when they are at extremes versus overthinking the middles. But recognizing the middles, I think, is important. I think that's where we are now, but it's where we're coming from. 3 months ago, sentiment was a headwind. Newsletter writers were the most bullish they had been in years. A lot of our indicators and a lot of these polls were the most bullish we had seen since 2021. That's a potential headwind, certainly not a tailwind like it was last year. Now it's changed. So a little bit of volatility in the stock market, some sideways grinding and lack of returns in the majority of stocks for 2 to 3 months has taken sentiment from a potential headwind to actually very close to even becoming a tailwind, which I think is a dramatic shift in where sentiment sits. Certainly near the middle, and we don't want to overthink it, but I think it's important to see where we've come from and where we are now. No longer a headwind at all.
I'm with JC. Again, it is the hardest thing to measure. StockTwits has 16 years of it, and I would rather throw it into a composite than just rely it on its own. We'll probably have to get that thrown in here and make it really unique. But, here's the thing. In a world where government prints money, and everybody's never going to come. It's a game that is being played. It's hard, right? You can't short on valuation, so sentiment becomes a key thing, right? Sentiment in Apple was very weak. Sentiment in Tesla and some of these degenerate things have gotten crazy and negative. And so you get some relief. And then you get people that lean in too far and you get, reversions. But it's a tough thing to invest based off sentiment. But I find it when it's extremely negative, I find it rather valuable more than when it's extremely positive. So be careful. Be careful. I love it, but I only tend to use it when it's extremely negative because I prefer to fade fear than to fade greed.
But let me ask you this, Howard. I agree with everything you're saying, by the way, which I feel like it's funny in and of itself. So I agree with all of that. But
this isn't a hard one.
If you're buying stocks, wouldn't you rather sentiment be like this versus how it was 3 months ago?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Again, there's 2 times I like buying stocks personally, other than in direct indexing, which everybody knows, is I like to buy stocks when sentiment is terrible. That's what we talked about Apple a couple of weeks ago and Google on dips. And I like to buy stocks when the VIX is 30, right? Like when there's true fear. And that only happens maybe once or twice every year or two. So, in order to do that, you got to be patient most of the time. Phil's very patient in his own way. He doesn't need to see price go up. Phil's very much psychological, watching the markets forever and talking to us. So everybody's got their different style. But JC, I agree with you.
Speaking of that and the patience and the sentiment and the psychology stuff, JC, we've talked about this off camera before, but I love what you're doing here in terms of creating a practical composite. One recommendation I'd have on that second chart, why don't you turn that upside down? So opportunity. So when the sentiment is getting more bearish, it's going down. And when the sentiment's getting more bullish, it's going up.
Yeah, either way, doesn't matter. When
Okay.
the
One
reason
other
it's like
question
that
for
is
you.
because when it's down, there's a lot of risk. When it's up, there's a lot of opportunity. You want to be buying when it's up. You want to be selling when it's down.
And the 2 bull pair spread, that is letter writers. Is that exactly?
The investor
is that right?
intelligence is the newsletter writers. The AAII is individual investors, and the NAAIM is mostly active financial advisors. I've spoken at their conference. Awesome crew.
So the investor intelligence one, where the newsletter is the newsletter writer one, that has had the most volatility. So that was insanely bullish near the top. I mean, so I'm getting at something here, but that was insanely bullish when the market was topping, and now has shifted to significantly bearish as we're starting to get this move off the bottom, this incredible rally that we're having. Rates are coming in a little bit, and a lot of things are aligning. And so if you're watching, for those playing at home, just take note that a lot of the people who are writing these newsletters, you're subscribing to them, they are being led around themselves by their emotions. They're wearing their emotions on the sleeves. They're not noting that. They're not controlling, not necessarily a methodology. They're subject to fear and greed. Is that any lies told there?
This was this data goes back to the 1960s. So there's a lot of history on this, which I love, right? Just in general, the fact that you can get this data going back so far, number one. Number two, the guy who created it in the 60s did it because with a thought process that if all the newsletter writers are bullish, it's a great time to be buying. When the newsletter writers are bearish, it's a good time to be selling, almost like averaging out the smartest people. As it turns out, he quickly realized it was the exact opposite. When the newsletter writers were telling you to sell, like in the summer and fall of 22, was a great time to be buying. And when they're telling you to buy, like 3 months ago, it was a great time to be easing up. And he, to his credit, he figured that out very quickly and pivoted that did a complete 180 on what the strategy was.
My guess on why you had to pivot that, and I feel the same way as he does, is no one follows up. Everybody's trying to call tops and bottoms. We'll get into it later with Balagi. It's a drug that people feel because no one holds even. Every newsletter is like their own Kramer, right? They don't write every day. And so they're trying to write that one blog post for the newsletter for the gotcha. See, I called the top, I called the bottom. It's the worst thing that can happen to an investor. For all those listening, this is why the show's called Trends with Friends. Nothing shameful about riding a trend. There is no shameful profits from doing very simple things. There are bad habits you can create, and the worst thing that can happen is you get a macro call right, because it turns you into the monster that will be wrong most of the rest of your life. But keep going, Phil.
No, I really appreciate you saying that, because it's like the anti-intellectualized argument. It's like all these people trying to sound smart, and then you're just sitting there, dumb as you can be, riding the trend, making money. Dumb and making money.
Yep. Which, again, low fees, direct indexing, which is what you do. Yep. Keep going.
Beautiful. Okay, so we're developing a theme here, and I just want to follow that up. I think the sentiment chart, there's an argument that's the most interesting chart at this moment right now. Let's move ahead to another one. This one is a Jeff Hirsch special, and it sort of dovetails nicely with that sentiment chart that we were just looking at. And this is a seasonality chart. Just looking ahead, we're taping this on the 7th. This will air the 9th, starting the last week of May. So this is about a week and a half from now, 2 weeks from now, starting around the 20th, 23rd, you get a really nice seasonal trend. Last week in May is usually a really bullish week. Do we have to know why? I don't think so. All we have to know is that it is true that year after year, this is measured over the last 20 years and over the last 70 years during election years, that we know that around the 23rd, market tends to bottom from this choppiness that we've been getting, that we usually get in the April-May time. And that choppiness begins to end, and we get a really nice move higher. And there's that chart. I mean, it's a Trader's Almanac special. Around the 23rd. Look at the NASDAQ there. Any thoughts, guys?
It's mostly that May, and I'll just drop this one here from the homie Ari Wald over at Oppenheimer, so you guys can see that. So this shows in presidential election years, particularly with an incumbent, the summer tends to be really strong. So the sell in May and go away does not apply to election years with incumbent presidents. Quite the opposite, in fact, tends to be a very bullish time of the year. Keep that in mind.
Dude, that's a
Ari
great
Wald,
chart.
you know
by the
Ari,
way.
he's the man.
Great chart. Ari's the man. I don't know, tough one. I think it's a little too short. But I just think the price action is such that if you're bearish right now, you're just not reading it. You're upside
Election
down,
years
not
with
thinking
incumbents,
straight.
market bottoms in May. That's it. What that means to you, again, you get back to price, but it's interesting to have that context, right?
I've talked about it with some of the smartest people I know. I was cycling with them yesterday in LA, and I've been talking to Michael Preck, as you know. The market is acting fine. I mean, I can't explain it, and I want to dig into it. No one knows. We're just trying to read the tea leaves like everybody else and being a little more honest than most people. Markets, you would think the vol would be crazy with two bad candidates and crazy people trying to be vice president for Trump. And market's looking past all this right now. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, we could be in for a wallop, but like JC says, the tea leaves are good. Earnings are good. China's starting to work. Everybody wants to make a moon. And I don't know. And there's a lot of negative sentiment. So I think that's what all these charts have been saying, and they're all aligning in a weird way. All right, what's next?
Has the news ever been anything other than noise and really just something that obscures price action?
Well, again, I look forward to our show because it's my homework. Like JC's doing his work, Riley's doing his work every day with Trends with No Friends. And you're doing your work. I got a psychologist. And two hungry data people that are looking at the market JC kind of trained Riley. So we all look at the market very differently, but very methodically. And I think we all agree that none of us care about news because we've all been down that rabbit hole and it makes you miserable, right? You want to get happier? Remove news, remove mobile apps from your phone.
Yeah, but we're jaded, and let's explain to the audience who hasn't had our experiences. All of us have been on many TV and network, traditional media or spin-offs of traditional media, and we've been doing that for many years. So that we know how the sausage is made. We know why it's so bad. We know what their incentives are, which is not to help the end consumer. It is to convince the end consumer to continue to watch. That's it. So it's the incentives that are misaligned there, which is what creates the problem of the content just not being good. The incentives are not aligned. But a lot of people don't know that. We know that because we've done it all, right? So let's remind everybody why we think these things. We've seen it.
Yeah. And you've never had a better chance, Phil, to make better choices with Spotify, with Conan, with YouTube, your algo, tuning your algo to comedians and people that are silly. Take your spare time and use it for silly things. Conan's the first guy to say it, right? Like again, I didn't have the pleasure of watching. I was raising kids during his TV run, but Howard Stern and Conan, the older they get, the sillier they get, the more introspective they get. They're not talking about headlines. You go to listen to Conan's show, you will not know what's going on in the world. You go watch a Joe Rogan show, he's playing it the exact opposite. And don't get me wrong, he's trying to create clicks and he has a huge audience. But I think we're headed to a world where more people, especially in this TikTok world, where we all know China's involved. We don't know the depravity of it all, but they're so sinister, right? And we went through an era of ZERP where everybody turned their back on sinister because we all were the product. We were all having fun at the very beginning, flirting, Tindering, hinging, and sharing our fun, stock picks and whatever. Experimenting. The experiment, now we realize we were the product. And I think it's a very dangerous time for investors if they think news is giving them an edge. It isn't. I think you're going to have to find better mentors as we head into this phase. But we all learn it, right? JC said, we all, if I get asked to go on CNBC, which I, for years I turned down after going on for a while, we can't get across our points when we go on TV. We can only get across how we feel and how we look at the markets in long form conversations like this. And CNBC and the rest of the people can't let us ramble like this, right? They just won't let us do it. And so if JC goes on, he's not even going to listen to the questions, right? He's going to get his point across because he's a professional going on TV, right? If JC goes on TV, he's going to deliver his message. When JC began to go on TV, he would just answer whatever they said. So there are very few people that have the knowledge to go on these programs and pitch their agenda and pitch it in a good way. So be very careful of certain podcasts and certain TV. So
they're selling you pharmaceuticals and breakfast cereal, and that's
they're killing you, Smalls.
Okay, so
they're killing you.
They're killing you. They're selling you drugs and poisonous cereal, breakfast cereal. Do we have a QQ? Okay, so I'm looking for a QQQ chart or a SPY chart. I just wanted to stop for a minute and point out that if you look at the Qs were down 7%. We had a 7% correction. And now all of a sudden we're 1% from all-time highs. So we've already had a really nice rebound, pretty significant rebound.
Yeah, I mean, here I'll throw them both up just so you could see it. But you got the equally weighted S&P 500 and equally weighted Nasdaq right at those former highs, and then you've got the market cap weighted versions of that above those former highs. Now, whether you like it or not, we live in a market cap weighted world, as we should. My fundamental friends tell me all these revenues and earnings are coming from these big companies, and all that works. Whether it does or whether it doesn't, that's none of my business. What I can tell you is in a market cap weighted world, which is the world we live in, these indexes are making new all-time highs and are above the prior cycle's highs. As long as that's the case, the structural bull market remains in place. I don't care what you think about the world. I don't care who the hell the president is or what's going on in China or what war. It doesn't matter. It's a bull market. Now, if you go to the equally weighted indexes, this is going to reflect what a lot of stocks look like, what a lot of, this software, the software index looks like this. Bitcoin looks like this. Look at like basic materials, look at healthcare, look at financials. All of them look like this. There are industry groups and certain segments of those indexes that are above, like semiconductors, for example. But look at, and also like home builders, for example, are above those former highs. The broker dealers index is above those former highs. So those are the leadership groups. So, and if you go to the performance, you had a correction over time, which is why sentiment has shifted so dramatically, because we had a 3-month period where the majority of stocks were down. Most investors were losing money. Breakouts were failing. It was really just not a great period of time to be buying breakouts and doing the things that were working last year. It was just a very different market. And I think that speaks to that. And you saw sentiment shift accordingly, but that doesn't change the structural bull market that we've been in, right?
Nothing to add. He's right on.
Beautiful. And then, so there's people watching this and they're like, okay, technical analysis is voodoo. You can't tell future price by past price. So I added one more potential most interesting chart in the world. That's actually the most boring one. So we're probably not gonna pick it, but I just do want to bring it up. And that is, for those of you who are watching this, who are looking for some underlying fundamental meaning, why prices are moving the way they are, even though that is so complicated, we have no idea, because we live in such a complicated world, can't possibly thread that out. That's why we look at price and why we look at trends. But if you need to, this one is just forward earnings expectations. Ryan Dietrich posted this one the other day at Carson Group, the great Ryan Dietrich. And this is just, this is actually an incredible chart, even though it's boring. Forward earnings expectations continue to move up, continue to ramp. So we've seen the expectations of earnings moved from 245 to 255 just since the beginning of the year. It's a significant move. And if we look at it from the bottom around this time last year, we've moved up very significantly. So expectations are changing. Howie.
Two things quickly, because we all love Ryan. He's such a loyal guy and a good human.
Sexy too. Just sexy.
He's not sexy, Phil. But stay on point. This is much like the newsletter thing. I get scared when the expectations go moon. I prefer, much like newsletter writers, when the expectations go south, right? The great time to buy stocks is when expectations were in the toilet, in the 22s, right? Like December 22. JC was talking about it in October 22.
Well, but these are two different things. Right, because you're talking.
Well, these are people's.
These are the expectations of earnings. You're talking about from a sentiment, the analysts, I think, is what you're talking
about. No, but when the earnings is sentiment, when everybody's jacking up their earnings,
yes,
JC,
but that's the point. It's when the humans are jacking up the earnings expectations, not the earnings expectations themselves.
So I'm a little more nervous now. I prefer to see them jacking down earnings expectations.
When they start jacking down the earnings expectations, that means they're following price to the downside. That's confirmation. Right? We want to see the sell side chasing. That's perfectly consistent with bull markets. Yeah, 100%, Howard. Yeah.
No, it's consistent with bull market, but I'm saying I'd prefer to not chase them. I just so you know, when I look at that chart, I go, two things that I see. I guess you and I might differ here, but what I'm seeing is this is why the macro people are wrong. CEOs of great companies are here to drive earnings higher. Whatever game you may call them, stock buybacks, whatever, they know the game. When that game finally gets broken and America does not reward companies for growing earnings, all bets are off, right? I don't know when that happens. I don't know what religion we are, who's running the country at that point. I don't know, man. It won't be good. But when the game is the game and the game is about earnings, when these things are going up, the trend is your friend. And that's the game being played. But what I am saying also, JC, I'm not scared of when these things are ratcheted down for a year. I get a little excited when these guys get too negative and their earnings expectations going forward keep coming down. Yeah. So maybe we're saying the same thing. But again, there's two parts of the game.
But it's a time. It's more of just a time frame. So think about.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I agree about the timing thing.
Remember
it's not perfect.
Sonic the Hedgehog, how it would get chased by like that little fox or whatever. Remember? So price is Sonic the Hedgehog, and the sell side analysts that are revising their earnings higher are chasing that higher. So all it really is, you're 100% right. All the sell side analyst revisions is confirmation of that trend. And when they're chasing lower, it's confirmation that prices are going lower, right? You feel me?
Yeah. No, I prefer them going up because the dips get easier to buy because there's confirmation that these people will be banging the table to buy the dip. All I'm saying is, the real game here in America, and like it or hate it, is you get paid for jacking earnings. You get paid for delivering earnings, whether you're Axon or a biotech or whether it's Amgen or whether it's Goldman. You get paid for earnings. And people lose their way. They forget that earnings drive stock prices. When that game changes, I don't know. The reason, and we're going to pull up the Balagis of the world, they love these macro picks. They pick one fucking data point and they've been right, but in the past of something else. And then they find one data point like a dog and they latch onto it. And today it's the debt, right? Market go down because eventually the debt implodes and they create all kinds of chart crimes to talk about one specific data point. And what they forget is the game is driven by earnings, right? And, so I think earnings expectations is an important chart that you just shared there. Phil.
So we have that chart. And so nice segue, Howie. And now that we have you all bulled up, everybody's all excited. We're talking about the market. We showed that sentiment shift and Ari Wald's seasonality chart and Jeff's seasonality chart, how things in the last week of May and through June, July, and August are about to get super bullish. Balagi posts this one. And this is basically the debt to death chart. Howie, tell us about this one.
Again, it's about creating alpha. we're here in Trends with Friends to try and keep it simple, right? This would create clicks for us if we pound the table each week on this chart and how the US is going to destroy itself by devaluing the dollar. I don't know, maybe we'd have more viewers, maybe we'd have more followers, maybe we'd have better hair. But nothing infuriates me more than smart people acting like they're now macro experts, right? This defies, if the market drops, it's not going to be about this, right? It's going to be about rates and it's going to be about assets like real estate, but it's not going to be because of US interest payments, okay? We're the best house in a shitty fucking neighborhood. That story continues and continues and continues. Maybe it's getting worse, but relative to Europe and the rest of the world, still the best. Balagi has latched on, as David Sachs says in Chamath, and every other ZERP baby that got lucky riding ZERP now would like to question and scare everybody out of the markets when they don't understand the fundamentals, which is the charts that we talked about the last time, which is the market is driven by earnings. If earnings start disappearing, be careful. This will not drive earnings. What will drive earnings is long-term interest rates. Like I'm seeing in LA. I was with my LA friends last night. Houses are stagnant. People can't sell their houses. In Scottsdale, everybody's selling their houses still. So you've got to watch for real signs in the economy of things turning. But right now, everything we shared up to this point was not super bullish, just reasons to be bullish. But it's worth looking at the guys like Balagi. I mean, he's gotten a few calls very right. I think where you read into this chart, Phil, before I hand it off to JC and Riley on this and you, is that this goes back to my 3 Gs, Goldman, gold, Google. You can be bearish. You can express a bearishness, which being long Google gold is, which is a reflection of this chart here, and still be long the market. Google, like I said, if we pulled up the Google charts back at all-time highs today, I'll get worried when Google gives up that breakout high of 260, right? Like I'm not saying buy Google at 172, but I'm saying I won't get nervous about the market until Google gives up that breakaway gap to all-time highs that it had. Then I may go whoops and go, let's revisit. But like, I'd rather just not think too much and start overlaying single charts over my market thesis when Google, Gold, and Goldman, which are representative of actually the whole market here, with a little extra tinge of gold, which is what? JC, there's no gold in the S&P, is there? So gold isn't even really represented in the S&P. So you basically can put on a hedge right now with gold working and really express what Balaji's saying and throw a little Bitcoin in there and have 4 positions on and really go to the beach and wait to see if Google trades below 150 before you change your mind. But like people are overthinking this. And that Balagi chart's upsetting because he's a very smart guy that's just fucking chasing traffic or whatever he's doing with a really fucking chart crime. Okay, JC, what do you see? Do you see a chart crime or do you care about what he's posting?
I don't know any of these people you're talking about.
Don't worry, they're big tech people. They're big tech people with big audiences. I'm talking about the chart, JC. Like, just take a look at that chart. Was it something that you would care about and assess in your daily look at the market?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
If you're a budding influencer watching this right now and you want more traffic and you want more engagement, just go on the internet and find the scariest shit that you can possibly find and post that with some snide comment. Yeah. That's all you have to do. That's a formula. I should actually package that and sell a subscription to how to become a giant influencer. Yep. Okay, we have a couple more minutes left.
But Howard, are you just trolling me? I don't give a shit about any of this stuff. Like,
no, but I'm saying these are people with massive followers.
Who cares?
And I'm not saying I was wondering.
Zero Head has lots of followers. Are you going to care what's on Zero Head?
No, but I'm trying to educate people because the chart got shared with me 10 different ways, meaning. I only bring it up because these people end up wasting my time, right? I don't follow
you know better than anybody else and us intimately well that some of the least followed people in the world are some of the ones that provide the most value.
Hence trends with no friends.
But in humans too.
Hence Lewis Johnson, Michael Perret. Yeah. Yeah.
Humans with no friends.
No, but you have no idea the amount of wealth that's hit me up based on that Balagi chart, right? The amount of wealth, forgetting the amount of people that look at this and they're questioning, why call me?
Where is
I'm a small
Balagi?
fry.
Where is this place? I've never heard of.
Balagi's a guy, and he ran Coinbase. He was CTO of Coinbase. And, yeah,
I definitely don't.
It's not an
He's
island.
He's just spreading fear in our time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's end it with something incredibly boring. This stock.
Okay,
so this
go.
came up in. Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Adios. Oh yeah. So Riley's still here. Beautiful. So this one came up as a trends with no friends. It's so boring. It's like HVAC or something like that. Comfort systems. Riley posted this to our little group, like the pre-show group. And Howard's reaction was, this is too boring for me, even. He was like, this is old news. I don't want anything to do. This is just too boring for me. So I just wanted to come back to Riley. One more idea. We've shared like 10, 20 good ideas today. Let's just have one last one. 471 followers on StockTwits. If you look at a longer term chart, it's also gorgeous. Riley.
Yeah, I mean, Comfort Systems is an absolute beast. I think part of Howard's comment was that this name has been working for a while, although it is breaking out.
Yeah, sorry, Bill. I was just saying, I was just saying I was looking for a fresher break. This is a beautiful base. I'm just saying this HVAC industry, which is, I'm seeing some startups in this space confidentially. This is what's dragging startups. This is almost a monopoly company that's quietly over the last 20 years built up a huge HVAC. And so I'm starting to see startups in this space because they realize HVAC's just a roll up. So, but I'm saying you look at that in 2015, 2016, if we were paying attention, we would have been all over this. We're trying to find stuff, just so you know, no knock on Riley. The reason I was saying it, Phil, is our job here at Trends with Friends is more to find these fixes at 2016, 2017 prices. Same with Axon, same with MMYT when we called it, same with Solana when we called it a 20. I'm not saying fix can't triple again. I'm saying Comfort Systems still has no followers. And my interpretation of Comfort Systems is why I'm starting to see HVAC and home repair type roll-ups and other types of, you know what I'm saying, Riley? Meaning now it's starting to make sense to me because I sent it to a couple founders in this space who had never heard of this company, yet they were starting companies in this space. That blew my mind.
Can I get one? I got one for you, Pearl Doc. Can we get one before we go?
But good one.
Go ahead.
Riley, you understand what I'm saying there? You understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
Let's look for some freshies. I like where Lindson's coming from. This is an oldie but goodie. Let's look at some freshies, right, Linson? This one, throw up the chart just to reiterate how well Latin America has been doing, and this is an ongoing theme. This isn't anything new. If you could just pull up you could see Argentina up 64% off those October lows. Peru's up almost 50%. Colombia, Mexico, all outperforming across the board, right? And if you zoom out to the beginning of last year, you'll see the exact same thing. Look at the Bolsa de Valores de Lima. This is the Peru index breaking out of a monster base to new all-time highs, right? And I think the best way to play that is using BVN. This is Compañía de Minas Buenaventura, BVN, and look at that correlation with copper. And speaking of a trend with no friends, I can't imagine that this has a ton of followers on StockTwits. I'd love to for you to fill me in on that, Riley. But this is a small basic materials company, $4 billion out of Peru. Keep this in mind. It's above 17. I think you got a double or a triple, maybe.
Yeah,
653.
That's nothing, right?
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Riley.
That's low,
lead.
right?
Yeah, this is, we found this with Solana. We found it with Make My Trip. I think Make My Trip still fits this. The India quietly continues to lead. Make My Trip went in a vicious pullback right back to all-time highs. I think you're seeing it with Mercado Libre. There's a lot of great bases and a lot of great, as they would say, rest in peace, William O'Neill, a lot of cups and handles. There's a lot of way to participate right now. Right. And I think the media's got everybody miserable. And I was looking at the small caps that are working, JC. So many biotechs. Go to that small cap chart that I put up there. You can see that the major indexes, the S&P 600 and the Russell 2000, are both flat.
but you could see those minor leaguers, which is the report of the strongest small cap stock. There's some good ones. Buenaventura is on that list, the small cap stock. That's the one I like.
Yep. Good job, boys. Phil, do we miss anything?
I love this show because, we didn't have any fancy guests, but we just shared ideas and a thesis going into the next few months and some great stocks and some great ideas. So it's just a beautiful thing.
Let's all pimp one
love
thing.
You guys.
I want to pimp one thing, JC.
Go ahead. Everybody pimp one thing.
I'm going to pimp for Riley. Trends with No Friends growing fast, part of the Trends with Friends. And we launched Trends with Friends, the four of us, the four amigos. I think it's a beautiful little site. Second, I want to pimp is you are going to see some massive launches. Mike Bizzello and team, nothing to brag about, but threading will be live this week on StockTwits. So it'll really change. It's good to see JC back posting against Trouser. Once Threads gets launched, we're pretty much on par with Twitter. We'll be adding 10,000 characters as well. So we're going quickly to Twitter parity, at least for our FinTwit fans, multiple images, polls, but threading is a big game changer. That launches this week. And then, part of my strategy for the few people that, few thousands that do love us, huge strategy change for me at StockTwits, and JC and Phil know this, is you can't win every day on the internet. You've got TikTok, Telegram, Discord, Instagram, Pinterest, Tinder, Twitter, Facebook. No one's going to win the attention game. It's a race to the bottom. Netflix is winning. TikTok is winning for now. Facebook is winning for now. You're not going to win. You're just not going to win. You're not going to build a consumer app. So those consumer apps like StockTwits that survived, whether you like it or not, and we did many mistakes over the years. But now that I'm back, what we are going to win is earnings. There's 12 weeks a year where StockTwits is extra relevant, and we've kind of dropped the ball there. And that's the Super Bowls, 3 weeks every quarter with earnings. May 26th, mark your calendar, NVIDIA's earnings. You will see a new, improved earnings experience on StockTwits. It'll be kind of like Red Zone. And we don't have to win every day, but you are going to see one of the funnest places on the internet for an earnings call, for an earnings betting, for earnings discussion, for earnings silliness, but also for true earnings dissemination. And so you'll see that May 26th for the NVIDIA call. So I'm excited. Team's pushing hard for this launch, and I think you'll see a very new StockTwits. As we get wiser about how we think about the internet and attention, I think people will really be happy with these launches. So that's, sorry, I had to pimp that. JC, anything to
I want to pimp out the Berkshires, Western Massachusetts, great place. Take your family, just drive around the old country roads and, go check out some farms and good eats, great, like
little cow tipping, little cow tipping. No,
there's no cow tipping. That is a myth. Go to the Berkshires. It's very accessible to people around New York City. Perlman, you're right there, dude. Just go over the Tappan Zee, go up a couple hours, and you're right in the heart of it. The Basketball Hall of Fame is actually just south of the Berkshires. It's in Springfield, which is not a great place, but the Basketball Hall of Fame is awesome. So you can do Basketball Hall of Fame, go up to the Berkshires. I like Stockbridge personally. You get some good Airbnbs in that area. There's a wine shop.
What about
right around the corner
Amish?
From the Red
Can you make some
Lion
butter
Inn?
with the
Check
Amish there? Any Amish?
Amish people in the Berkshires?
No? Okay. Phil?
I like the Berkshires in late September, in the early fall.
October the 20th.
Oh, okay.
Roman,
So really
October
quickly,
20th.
here's all I have
October
to say. October 20th. Here's all I have to say. We were talking before about how the media does not have your back in terms of markets. They're not telling you anything that's going to be valuable. They're just looking for sensationalism. The same exact thing is true when it comes to your health. The media has no idea what they're talking about when it comes to your health. They're just looking for anything that's salacious, anything that's going to help get clicks. They don't know you. They don't know your personal story or your personal needs. So ignore, and all they're really doing is trying to sell you drugs and sell you breakfast cereals that are filled with sugar and poisonous. So what you want to do if you're trying to get healthy is you just want to find one thing that's working for you. Maybe it's taking a walk in the morning. Maybe it's eating real foods that are not filled with sugar. Maybe whatever. Maybe it's getting a good night's sleep at night. But find one thing that is working for you, and then just keep doing that one thing and ignore anything the media is telling you. Just keep doing the one thing that's working, and that will become a gateway drug and will lead to more healthy things. Riley, pimp Trends with No Friends for us. Tell us where we can find it.
Well, I'm going to pimp Trends with No Friends at nofriends.beehive.com. But my other pimp is Seven Canyons golf course up here in Sedona. I had an opportunity to play it a few weeks ago, and it might be the most beautiful golf course in the world.
Really? I'll come up. All right.
Yeah. It's
Seven Canyons.
Seven Canyons.
Sounds incredible.
Quickly to Phil's point, very hard to overwhelming for people that are 10, 20 pounds overweight. One thing to do is try and break a habit. Like I said, 3 days, I broke Twitter habit. Everybody can break a habit in 3 to 5 days. You don't have to solve fucking world peace. We got to start fixing habits. So don't start with something overwhelming, right? You can pick one habit that you really want to fix, and that'll lead to other compounding. But good work, boys. JC, how's the kids? How's the little babies, all 3 of them?
Dude, awesome, man. We took them to the Berkshires this week. They did a great job. They have all kinds of little diners, little old school diners with like eggs and all kinds of bacon and stuff. I mean, it's all like farm to table, all New England shit. It's awesome, dude. It's awesome.
All right, boys. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Riley. Thanks,
Adios.
JC.
Adios.
See you, everybody.
See you, fellas.